Hello, everyone. Welcome to a Critical Role fan art speed paint. Um, Today I'm gonna be talking over the most of the painting process with a little bit of sadness as well as the video files got corrupted and they turned all black and white, so you won't see the real coloring. But maybe you'll see that in a later date. So, in the one of the more recent Critical Role episodes, we found that we found Jester and Ford dancing together, and I thought that would be good enough to try and practice. And it kind of turned into its own thing, and it became a speed paint all on its own. So I was happy with how it turned out, but I could still see some spots for improvement. The lighting wasn't really the best, but we'll get to that later on. So the main hurdle that I felt during the entire painting process was trying to get their character design as close to as they have it on their website. So I used the more recent art for Ford and Jester, and it was hard. Jester's character design was a little more simple than Ford's, but Ford's design was very intricate and had a lot of small individual details that I had to take note of and come back over and double over one time over and over again, trying to get them right. For Jester's was a lot easier. However, I did have a harder time with Jester's hair, just because I've never drawn characters with horns before, so it was a legitimate journey. So you'll on the screen you'll see these flashing red bits, which are the artifacts of the file corrupting, but hopefully in the next speed paint it shouldn't be a problem. The total time was about 8 hours of painting and drawing and everything all together. It was a while. I was working on this painting for at least 2 days. Split up in between playing some Dungeons and Dragons and working on the painting, so it was kind of flopping back and forth as I was watching YouTube videos and stuff like that as well. The main hurdle that I found as well was I struggled to find the right brush size at the start. I was thinking I would sketch everything down with a slightly thicker brush, but it got really difficult near the end, and I realized I should lower the brush size in general. Also, Ford's armor is particularly detailed with all of the individual waves, the more cartoonized kind of waves of the arch and then the spiral in the middle. I think this is a point where I took a break and then came back to it the next day. Then I was adding the more detailed parts of their costume, so the wrinkles, the rings on Ford's arm brace. Here I think I stopped to eat lunch, if I'm not mistaken, and I forgot to pause the recording, so it's just sitting here for an extended period of time. Then I come back to it. There we go. I also do apologize for me zooming around the canvas a lot, because I tend to once I get stuck on something, I think I'll work on something else in the meantime, so I don't have to worry about the placement of the lines on that particular thing, and it usually works out well. There are stages where I feel it's not too much of a problem, as the lines and the line quality kind of assist each other in some ways. Of course, I do see the painting in itself isn't perfect at all, but I do see the moments where I could have fixed that line. Maybe if I spent a little more time, I could have fixed that line a little better. I see little spots here and there where I realize this line quality could be a little better. Even on Jester's finger right there, the bump that goes outwards on her ring finger, her pinky finger, looks kind of weird. I notice it now and I want to fix it, but the painting's already done. I can't do much about it, but I'll take note of it for next time. The struggling part of this painting was a lot of trying to figure out the details, because the details, like, I mean, the character design is there already. They're like kind of clear enough with how the characters are drawn. But the hard part was trying to figure out the position of the details in a different perspective, because on the perspective in the art, they're at 3/4 in a specific direction. So it was trying to figure out that detail in a 3D space, which I did struggle with for some time. So those blotches on the screen, they're not just black and white, or they're not like monochromed. They're actually like the colors of the skin, the armor, the leather, and all of that stuff. It's just the video file corruption. That's why it looks all weird. You could see, I mean, you can see that they were like legitimate swatches from the art. So I kept it as close as possible to how they actually look when depicted in their official art. And for Ford, I just realized now, like looking at the layers on the right side, there are a lot. He had a lot of different layers to him. He had his cloak, then his armor on top, then the leather shirt he wears underneath, then what seems to be like hip armor or like low body armor. So it's like, it was a lot of layers, and I think I made a folder like afterwards trying to get everything into like one place. Yeah, there's me blocking in the rest of Ford. So that white part on Ford's hair is like, yeah, there we go. It's supposed to be actually white. I stop here for some reason. I think it's like probably grabbing a snack, or like went somewhere, got up to do something, forgot to pause the recording again. There we go. So as you can see on the right side, I made a folder for all of Ford's colors, because I tried out a new coloring system in this video, and I wish you guys got to see it, but it did look pretty nice. The general idea is putting down the base colors of everything. So Jester's base color for her traveler cloak, plus the base color for her skin, leather, and everything like that. I put down first, then I went in afterwards on a more black and white layer, and then from that layer I worked on blocking in individual parts of color. So individual parts of shading, so I was able to put some shading here and there that assisted in kind of bringing the piece a little more forwards. Though I do happen to do the horrible thing of kind of just staring at your art piece for way too long and figuring out like, this looks wrong for some reason. I'm not sure why it's wrong, but it looks kind of messed up for some reason. And there was a lot of that as well, because I had to try and figure out what the hell the lighting was like. I had to figure out where the lights were, how to light both of the characters at the same time, making them feel connected in a weird way, trying to make sure there was a more physical interaction, not only with the lights but with everything else as well. Here I made a duplicate file of my save, so I didn't mess up the old one, and this is where I was experimenting with that newer coloring style. I think I looked at like I was listening to like more Critical Role in the background at this point, so I was getting a little more inspired to push the piece forwards. But I think at this point it was like a lot of cleanup, I would assume. Yeah, it's like mostly cleanup at this point. Lines and stuff I forgot to add. Fixing the overfill of color. I didn't have much overfill, thankfully. It was like relatively tamed. This is another part where I just stopped and stared at the painting. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. I kind of just stopped and looked, and I was like, I have no idea where this is going, and I am trying my best to clean it up as much as I can. Speaking of which, yeah, I remember the general idea I had was I was going to magic wand tool, or like quick select all of the line art, and then just bucket fill in with the selected line art. Then I realized that would take forever because of the amount of detail on Jester's cross hatching on her clothes, plus the armor, like individual leather plates of Ford, and that would have just taken so long. Oh, this is the black and white part, so I fill in like a bunch of the mistakes, and I go in and like really rough blocking in a bunch of shadows. I figured out what kind of lighting I wanted, slightly backlit, but the light seems to be coming from slightly a little 3/4 on them, plus some light that's coming from directly behind them. So it gave this nice like glowing rim, glowing outer edge feel to the painting, which I really enjoyed, because I was looking for like a challenging amount of shadows to work on, and with this I was able to work on it pretty easily. Well, not easily, but I was able to figure everything out. That I think that was the, like, I was looking at the color blocking process. Once again, Ford's armor making it insanely difficult for the color blocking process because of just how detailed it was. And here's the edge light that I decided to put in. I think I put it, like, personally, I think I put it in a little too soon. I should have gone like a few more layers into the black and white, darker and lighter parts of the painting first before putting in this edge light, because it did give me problems like later on in actually like painting everything. And then here's the harsher shadows. This like outer rim white light was also, I had some difficult time tweaking the lighter parts more than the shaded parts, because there were just some moments where I'm looking at it and I'm like, that looks really horrible, that does not look good, I need to fix that. You can see like me messing with like the Gaussian blur filters and trying to clean up the edges of the painting. I think that's like the one thing that I really learned from this painting is, if you have line art, toggle on and off your line art so you can see if the edges of the shadow are defined well. If the shadows look like they're not really reacting, like it just seems like a smooth color, then that might be an issue. Like there, I was using the lasso tool to rope in the specific points of Ford's hair so I could get the color in properly, and it took me a while. It took me a while because I had to try and figure out like, where did the shadow go? Where did all of these lights come from? I messed around with like different brushes as well. Like the experimentation on this piece was insanely high. It was my first time drawing like D&D characters that weren't human or elves. I was like a tiefling with horns, half orc with like their more rugged male features. I had a hard time. It was difficult. Also, I would like notice the inconsistency of my lines on the shakiness of my lines on the outer rim, the outer glow. That kind of. All right, and here is where I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Okay. So here's where I went in and got the dark painting part, the shadowy part, and I legitimately just set it on screen. Oh no, not screen, lighten. I set it on lighten so that the color would bleed over the shadows. Then I took the shading and I brought it on top, and then I lowered the opacity so it felt like there was the real lack of light. Then past that, I went in and like I refined like the specific parts where I didn't like the color. I tried to fix the shading a little more. And there, you can see I was trying to do a reflective like bounce light off the gauntlets and stuff like that. Then I quickly realized that, Jesus, all I'm doing is recoloring it and not actually moving forward with the piece. But I kept it in. I like fixed some of it. Oh, here's the indentations on Ford's armor on the engravings. That was easier. Doing like indentations on armor is a lot easier than like making them super reflective. Oh, and yeah, here I forgot to color all of Jester's like metal earrings and loops and stuff like that on her armor. Forgot Ford's tooth there as well. I put down a gradient between the two colors, so the Ford color and the Jester color kind of blended between those two. Here I'm messing with a lot of screen tones. Went in, put in some tones for the eyes. Yeah, tried to fix the horrible mess of the shaky lines that I gave the edge light on Jester and Ford. Trying to like give a general tone to the picture. I think that's it, yeah.